Evelyn stood by the fireplace with her hands shaking around the mug of tea while the storm raged outside, rain beating against the windows. Marcus was leaning against the edge of the couch across the room, staring at her intently. His voice was low and laced with a perilous mixture of need and guilt as he whispered, "You can't tell me you haven't felt it too." As he approached, she gasped and blurted out the words she had been holding back. "Marcus, if we go too far, there's no turning back." Evelyn had no idea how much Marcus's visit would alter things when he showed up at their door with a sheepish smile and a bag. It was common for him to stay over when he was in town because he was her husband, Liam's best friend, and had been a part of their lives for years. As Liam led Marcus to the guest room, Marcus stated in a kind voice, "Thanks for letting me crash. Agree that I won't interfere." Evelyn had dismissed his appreciation with a kind grin. "You're related. You are always welcome." But there was something different about Marcus this time. His usual easygoing charm was tempered by a quiet intensity, a weight that seemed to follow him wherever he went. And as the days passed, Evelyn found herself noticing things she hadn't before, the way his laugh lingered, the way his gaze seemed to catch hers when no one else was looking. It was on the second evening, with Liam passed out on the couch after a few too many beers, that Marcus and Evelyn found themselves alone in the dimly lit living room. The air was thick with the smell of rain as the storm outside continued to rage. "He's still terrible at pacing himself," Marcus said with a laugh, nodding toward Liam. Evelyn smiled, wrapping her sweater tighter around herself. "He never learns." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the sound of the rain filling the space between them. But when Marcus spoke again, his tone was different, quieter, more serious. "You know," he began, his gaze fixed on the flickering flames of the fireplace. "You and Liam, you've always seemed so solid. I've always admired that." Evelyn hesitated, her grip tightening on her mug. "We are," she said, though the words felt hollow. "Marriage has its ups and downs, but we make it work." Marcus turned to her then, his eyes searching hers. "Do you ever feel unseen? Like you're just going through the motions?" The question caught her off guard, her heart skipping a beat. "What are you trying to say, Marcus?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. He shook his head, a wry smile tugging at his lips. "Forget it, I'm probably just projecting." But Evelyn couldn't shake the way his words lingered, or the way her chest tightened at the truth they had stirred. The next day, Marcus offered to help Evelyn with some yard work while Liam was out. The two of them worked side by side, their conversation light but filled with an undercurrent of tension neither dared to address. As they finished up, Evelyn handed Marcus a glass of water, her fingers brushing his. The contact was brief but electric, sending a jolt through her that she couldn't ignore. "You okay?" he asked, his voice low. "Yeah," she replied quickly, though her heart was racing. "Just tired." But Marcus didn't look away. Instead, he stepped closer, his expression softening. "Evelyn, if I'm crossing a line, tell me. But I need to know if you feel it, too." Her breath caught as his words sank in, the weight of them pulling her under. "Marcus, we can't," she said, though the conviction in her voice faltered. "Liam, I know," he interrupted, his tone filled with guilt. "But this isn't just some passing thing. I've felt this for a long time. Have you?" Evelyn didn't answer, but the way her hand lingered in his spoke volumes. That evening, as the storm intensified, Evelyn found herself drawn to the living room, where Marcus sat by the fireplace, a glass of whiskey in hand. The soft light illuminated his features, making him look impossibly more alluring. "You couldn't sleep either?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly as she stepped closer. He shook his head, his gaze meeting hers. "Not with everything on my mind." She hesitated, the weight of their earlier conversation still heavy on her chest. "Marcus, we need to stop this before it goes any further." "Do we?" he asked, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "Or are we just scared of what it means?" Evelyn's hands trembled as she set down her mug, her heart pounding as Marcus stood and closed the distance between them. "Tell me to stop," he murmured, his hand brushing her cheek, "and I will." But she didn't. Instead, she leaned into his touch, her resolve crumbling as his lips met hers. Evelyn woke to the soft sound of rain still falling outside, her heart heavy as she turned to find Marcus watching her. His expression was tender but filled with worry. "We shouldn't have done this," she said softly, her voice breaking. "I know," he replied, his hand reaching for hers, "but I don't regret it." Before she could respond, the sound of the front door opening sent a jolt of panic through her. Liam's voice called out, cheerful and oblivious. "Morning, you two up yet?" Marcus sat up, his jaw tightening as Evelyn scrambled to collect herself. "I'll handle it," he said firmly, his tone leaving no room for argument. When Liam walked into the living room, his smile faded as he took in the sight of Marcus standing near the fireplace, his shirt rumpled. "What's going on?" Liam asked, suspicion lacing his tone. Before Evelyn could speak, Marcus stepped forward, his expression calm but resolute. "Liam," he began, "we need to talk." Evelyn's heart pounded as the weight of Marcus's words hung in the air. Whatever came next, she knew their lives would never be the same. Liam's eyes narrowed, flicking between Marcus and Evelyn as the room filled with a suffocating tension. "What do you mean we need to talk?" he asked, his voice dangerously calm. Evelyn's stomach twisted in knots, her throat tightening as she searched for something to say. Before she could find the words, Marcus stepped forward, his shoulders squared. "There's no easy way to say this," Marcus began, his voice low but steady, "but you deserve the truth." Liam's jaw clenched, his fists tightening at his sides. "The truth about what?" Evelyn stood frozen, guilt crashing over her like a wave as Marcus turned to her, his expression softening. "Evelyn and we crossed a line. Last night." The silence that followed was deafening. Liam stared at Marcus, his face a mask of disbelief and anger. "You're joking," he said finally, his voice trembling with barely contained rage. "Please tell me you're joking." "I'm not," Marcus said firmly, "and I'm not going to lie to you." Evelyn stepped forward, her voice trembling as she tried to explain. "Liam, I never meant for this to happen. I never wanted to hurt you." "Then why?" Liam demanded, his voice cracking. "Why the hell would you do this to me?" Tears welled in Evelyn's eyes as she struggled to find the words. "Because I've felt so lost, so disconnected. You've been so focused on everything else. Work, friends, everything but us. And Marcus, he made me feel seen in a way I haven't felt in years." Liam's face twisted in pain, his hands running through his hair as he let out a bitter laugh. "So this is my fault now? You're blaming me?" "No," Evelyn said quickly, shaking her head. "I'm not blaming you. I'm just trying to be honest about how I've been feeling." Liam turned to Marcus, his voice rising with anger. "And you're supposed to be my best friend. How could you do this?" "I don't have an excuse," Marcus admitted, his tone raw with regret. "I betrayed you, and I'll carry that guilt for the rest of my life. But I can't pretend that what happened last night didn't mean something." Liam's face hardened, his gaze cutting into both of them. "You think that makes it okay? You think saying it meant something erases the fact that you stabbed me in the back?" Marcus stayed silent, his shoulders slumping under the weight of Liam's words. The tension in the room was suffocating as Liam paced back and forth, his anger simmering just below the surface. But then he stopped abruptly, turning to face them with an expression that was equal parts fury and something else. "You know what?" he said, his voice eerily calm. "Maybe I've been blind. Maybe I've ignored the cracks in our marriage because it was easier than facing the truth." Evelyn's heart raced as Liam's words sank in. "Liam, what are you saying?" He let out a sharp exhale, his gaze flicking between her and Marcus. "I'm saying maybe I'm tired of pretending too." Marcus frowned, his confusion evident. "What do you mean?" Liam stepped closer, his eyes dark and unreadable. "I mean, if you're going to betray me, at least have the decency to include me." The words hung in the air, heavy with implications. Evelyn's breath caught, her mind spinning as she tried to process what Liam was suggesting. "Liam, You don't what?" Liam interrupted, his voice softer now but no less intense. "You don't want to admit that there's something between all of us, that maybe it's not as black and white as we thought?" The room grew still as the weight of Liam's words settled over them. Marcus shifted uncomfortably, his voice tentative as he broke the silence. "Liam, are you sure about this?" Liam's gaze didn't waver. "I'm not sure about anything right now, but I know that if we're going to tear everything apart, we might as well face it head on." Evelyn's pulse thundered in her ears as she looked between the two men, the tension in the room thick and charged. "This is insane," she whispered, though her body betrayed her. leaning into the magnetic pull between them. "Maybe it is," Liam said, stepping closer to her. "But sometimes insanity is what it takes to figure out what's real." Evelyn's breath hitched as Liam's hand brushed her cheek, his touch igniting a spark that sent a shiver down her spine. Before she could speak, Marcus moved behind her, his presence grounding and overwhelming all at once. "You don't have to decide anything tonight," Liam said softly, his voice low and filled with an intensity that made her pulse race. "But if we're going to fall apart, let's do it together." What followed was a night of blurred boundaries and raw emotion, a collision of guilt, longing, and unspoken truths that none of them could have predicted. As the storm raged outside, they navigated the uncharted territory of their desires, each touch and whispered word challenging everything they thought they knew about themselves and each other. For Evelyn, it was a revelation, a moment where the weight of her choices felt both crushing and liberating. And as the first light of dawn crept through the windows, she realized that nothing about their lives would ever be the same. Evelyn woke to the sound of rain still falling, her thoughts tangled as she sat up. Liam was in the kitchen, his expression contemplative as he sipped his coffee. Marcus leaned against the counter, his eyes meeting hers with a mix of uncertainty and quiet understanding. "So," Liam said, breaking the silence, "where do we go from here?" Evelyn hesitated, her heart heavy as she looked between them. "I don't know," she admitted, "but maybe we figure it out together." The silence in the kitchen was deafening as Evelyn hesitated, her heart racing. Liam's question hung heavy in the air. "Where do we go from here?" Marcus shifted against the counter, his jaw tight, his gaze flicking between Evelyn and Liam. Finally, Evelyn found her voice. "We can't pretend this didn't happen," she said softly, her voice trembling. "But maybe it doesn't have to destroy everything." Liam leaned forward, his elbows resting on the table. "So what do you suggest?" he asked, his tone unreadable. Evelyn swallowed hard, her thoughts racing. "Maybe we stop trying to control it," she whispered. Liam's brow furrowed, confusion flickering across his face. But before he could respond, Evelyn stepped closer, her hand brushing his. "You said it yourself," she continued, her voice low. "If we're going to fall apart, let's do it together." The room grew charged as the weight of Evelyn's words settled over them. Liam's gaze darkened, his hand turning over to intertwine his fingers with hers. "You're serious?" he asked, his voice steady but thick with emotion. She nodded, her cheeks flushing. "I don't know what comes next, but I know I don't want to lose either of you." Marcus stepped closer, his presence commanding but hesitant. "This is insane," he muttered, his voice laced with disbelief. "Maybe," Liam said, his tone softening as he glanced at his best friend. "But sometimes insanity is the only way forward." Evelyn's breath caught as Liam reached out, his hand brushing her cheek. "Are you sure?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Instead of answering, she leaned into his touch, her lips meeting his in a kiss that was slow and deliberate. The warmth of his touch spread through her, and when Marcus stepped closer, his hand settling lightly on her waist, she didn't pull away. Liam pulled back slightly, his breath warm against her lips as he turned to Marcus. Their eyes met, a silent understanding passing between them. "If we do this," Liam said quietly, "there's no turning back." Marcus hesitated for only a moment before nodding. "I know." The tension in the room shifted, the boundaries between them dissolving as they gave in to the pull that had been building for so long. Marcus's lips found Evelyn's, his kiss different but no less intoxicating. Liam's hands traced the curve of her shoulders, grounding her in the moment as the three of them navigated uncharted territory. The night unfolded in a whirlwind of raw emotion and unrestrained passion. The storm outside mirrored the intensity within the room as they explored the depths of their connection, each touch and whispered word pushing them further beyond the limits of what they thought was possible. For Evelyn, it was a moment of liberation, a chance to feel truly desired and seen by the two men who had become the center of her world. For Liam and Marcus, it was a reckoning, a chance to confront their feelings and rediscover the bond that had always tied them together. As the first light of dawn filtered through the curtains, the three of them lay tangled together on the couch, the room still filled with the warmth of the fire. Evelyn stirred, her heart heavy but her mind clearer than it had been in years. Liam was the first to speak, his voice soft but steady. "We need to talk about what this means." Marcus nodded, his hand brushing Evelyn's. "But not right now," he said. "Right now, let's just be." Evelyn smiled faintly, her heart swelling as she realized that, for the first time in a long time, she wasn't afraid of what came next. Whatever the future held, they would face it together.